friends, I'm Miss Alexander, and I'm here to read you A Bad Case of Stripes by David Shannon. Camellia Cream loved lima beans, but she never ate them. All of her friends hated lima beans. She wanted to fit in. Camellia was always worried about what other people thought of her. Today, she was fretting even more than usual. It was the first day of school, and she couldn't decide what to wear. There were so many people to impress. She tried on 40 outfits, but none of them seemed quite right. She put on a pretty red dress and looked in the mirror, and then she screamed. Her mother ran into the room, and she screamed too. "Oh my heavens!" she cried. "You're completely covered in stripes." This was certainly true. Camellia was striped from head to toe. She looked like a rainbow. Miss Cream felt Camelia's forehead. "Do you feel all right?" she asked. "I feel fine," Camellia answered. "But just look at me." "You get back to bed this instant," her mother ordered. "You are not going to school today." Camellia was relieved. Whew. She didn't want to miss the first day of school, but she was afraid of what other kids would say. And she had no idea what to wear with those crazy stripes. What do you think would match those crazy stripes? That afternoon, Dr. Bumble came to examine Camellia. "Most extraordinary," he exclaimed. "I've never seen anything like it. Are you having any coughing, sneezing, runny nose, aches, pains, chills?" "No," Camellia told him. "I feel fine." "Well then," Dr. Bumble said, turning to Miss Cream, "I don't see any reason that you shouldn't go to school tomorrow. Here's some ointment that should help clear up those stripes." Oh my goodness. The next day was a disaster. Everyone at school laughed at Camellia. They called her Camellia the Crayon and Knight of the Living Lollipop. She tried her best to act like everything was normal. But when class was said at the Pledge of Allegiance, her stripes turned red, white, and blue. The other kids thought this was great. One yelled out, "Let's see some purple polka dots." And sure enough, Camellia turned all purple polka dotty. How do you think she's feeling right now? That night, Miss Harnes, the principal, called. "I'm sorry, Miss Cream," he said. "I'm going to have to ask you to keep Camellia home from school. She's just too much of a distraction. And I've been getting calls from other parents. They're afraid those stripes are contagious." Well, yes, I see, Dr. Bumble mumbled when Miss Cream phoned the next day. "I think I'd better bring the specialist. We'll be right over." About an hour later, Dr. Bumble arrived with 4 people in long white coats. He introduced them to the Creams. "This is Dr. Grop, Dr. Sponge, Dr. Cricket, and Dr. Young." Then the specialist went to work on Camellia. I wonder what they're going to find is wrong. That night, Camellia took her medicine. It was awful. When she woke up the next morning, she did feel different. But when she got dressed, her clothes didn't fit right. She looked in the mirror, and there, staring back at her, was a giant, multicolor pill with her face on it. Oh my goodness. Now she's a pill. Dr. Bumble rushed over as soon as Mrs. Cream called. But this time, instead of the specialist, he brought the experts. Dr. Gourd and Mr. Millen were the finest scientist minds in the land. Once again, Camellia was poked and prodded, looked at and listened to. The experts wrote down lots of numbers. Then they huddled together and whispered. Dr. Gourd finally spoke up. "It might be a virus," he announced with authority. Suddenly, fuzzy little virus balls appeared all over Camellia. "Or possibly some form of bacteria," Mr. Millen said. Out popped squiggly little bacteria tails. What do you notice is happening, friends? By now, the TV news had found out about Camilla. Reporters from every channel were outside her house telling the story, the bizarre case of the incredible changing kid. Soon, a huge crowd was camped out on the lawn. The Creams were swamped with all kinds of remedies, from psychologists, allergists, herbalists, nutritionists, psychics, an old medicine man, a guru, and even a veterinarian. But nothing worked. Oh my goodness. I wonder what she's going to do. One day, a woman who called herself an environmental therapist claimed she could cure camellia. Close your eyes, she said. Breathe deeply, she said, and become one with your room. I wish you hadn't said that, Camellia groaned. Slowly, she started to melt into the walls of her room. Her bed became her mouth. Her nose was a dresser, and her 2 paintings were her eyes. The therapist ran and screamed from the house. What are we going to do? It just keeps getting worse and worse. Mrs. Cream began to sob. At that moment, Mr. Cream heard a quiet little knock on the door. He opened it, and there stood an old woman who was just as plump and sweet as a strawberry. Excuse me, she said brightly, but I think I can help. She went into Camilla's room and looked around. My goodness, she said with a shake of her head. What we have seen here is a bad case of the stripes. One of the worst ones I've seen. She pulled a small container of green beans from her bag. Here, she said, these might do the trick. Are those magic beans? Asked Mrs. Cream. Oh no, replied the kind woman. There's no such thing. They're just some plain old lima beans. I'll bet you like some, wouldn't you? She said to Camilla. Camilla wanted a big heaping plateful of lima beans Camilla wanted a big heaping plateful of lima beans, more than just about anything, but she was still afraid to admit it. Yuck, she said. No one likes lima beans, especially me. Oh dear, the old woman said sadly. I guess I was wrong about you. She put the beans back in her bag and started towards the door. Camilla watched the old woman walk away. Those beans would taste so good, but being laughed at for eating them was nothing compared to what she had been going through. She finally couldn't stand it. Wait, she cried. The truth is, I really love lima beans. I thought so, said the old woman. She took a handful of beans and popped them into Camilla's mouth. Said Camilla. I wonder what's going to happen next. What do you think is going to happen next? Suddenly, the branches, feathers, squiggly tails began to disappear. Then the whole room swirled around. When it stopped, there stood Camilla, and everything was back to normal. I'm cured, she shouted. Yes, said the old woman. I knew the real you was in there somewhere. She patted Camilla on the head. Then she went outside and vanished into the crowd. Afterward, Camilla wasn't quite the same. Some of the kids at school said she was weird, but she didn't care a bit. She ate all the lima beans she wanted, and she never had even a touch of stripes again. The end.